Hello, everyone. I am Kathy Dale McNair. I'm a Presbyterian minister in the Presbyterian Church USA. And I just want to give you a little background to that because I want to make sure that you understand which niche of the Presbyterian Church I'm representing. The Presbyterian Church USA has several splinters. Our PCUSA is considered progressive on social issues and theology. Other branches of the Presbyterian Church are a little more conservative or evangelical. So don't assume that this is speaking for all Presbyterian churches. It's speaking for PCUSA churches. Okay, I'm supposed to give you some background and history on how this really landmark thing happened last June at our General Assembly, where they allocated $479,000 for mental health education. I'm still just amazed. It's such a cool thing. So I'll go back and give you the history. In about 2006, talk of some desire to address serious mental illness and suicide began to bubble up in various meetings and committees at our General Assemblies. Our General Assemblies meet every 2 years, so that beginning kind of interest at 2006 really came to fruition in 2008. And it was at that General Assembly that they decided to put some teeth in this. A General Assembly for the Presbyterian Church USA has 600 commissioners who represent 9,300 congregations, and that's 1.5 million active members. So back in 2008, the General Assembly voted to research and write a policy statement on serious mental illness. It was confined to serious mental illness. And whenever a policy statement is written in our church, the church is directed to study and have dialogue and take action. So this document went to sessions, which are the ruling bodies of our churches. So that means 9,300 churches got that document. And I'm all ready to show and tell, but I'll do it when we have images. I started in this field maybe 2010, and people would come up to me and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're Presbyterian. You all did the most amazing thing," and we did. In 2008, this was a real landmark document. It's still has lasting value today, but we have now gotten the not permission, but the direction to update it and improve it. So the research began in 2006. It took us 3 years to finish the document, and it's called Comfort My People. So part of the process was to research the Bible for themes that would apply to mental illness, and the two strongest were the feeling of living in a land of exile. And the document said those living with or impacted by mental illness oftentimes feel like they are living in a land of exile, similar to the forced exile of the Jews from the Holy Land of Israel cited in Deuteronomy. And so this is another quote. This theme explores the difficulties and injustices endured by people impacted by mental illness. The experience of mental illness disorders people's lives in ways that exiles them from themselves, their families, and their community. Presbyterians are known for being wordsmiths, and I love that word, disorders. The experience disorders people's lives in ways that exile them from themselves, their families, and their community. So the second theme that came up was from the book of Isaiah, where God directs us to comfort my people. And so that became the name of the document. This is all good. I think one of the things that tripped us up a little bit was to focus exclusively on serious mental illness. And I'll go into that a little bit later. So this work did a great job in researching and looking at the behavioral health aspects and therapy aspects and medical model. It was very thorough. But for the spiritual part of it, for the theological part of it, it's grounded in the belief that people are to be delivered from chaos and disorder into wholeness. That doesn't say that you grow out of a mental illness that you might have or have a diagnosis of, but the goal is to restore people who feel they're living in exile, and restoration can happen regardless of our life circumstances. So we recognize the validity of the medical model, but we lift up the importance of faith and community, and we lift up the importance of faith and community. So this document in 2008 really stressed the value of integrating both perspectives, the medical model and the spiritual dimension. And that provides a continuity of care for individuals. But the document also included the importance of renewing our culture and creating a healthier culture and society, which is way cool. I really like that that was part of it. So, Comfort My People had 49 pages. It addressed a lot of different topics. 16 pages were appendices, 12-page study guide, but it had the weight of a thesis, and it was pretty much written that way. It was very well written, but it didn't have a lot of action language to it. It was more about education. So, so I think, and they had stories interspersed, which was also excellent. But they were also very edited and very curated. So it was a document to read more than it was and something to put us into action. And I'm not saying that that was bad. Back then, that might have been exactly what was needed, is to give people that thorough education and examples and stories. So I'm just leaning towards what's happening now, and I'll get there in a minute. So the irony is that this document came out in 2008, and our real strong document in 2018. And I've heard it said several times that oftentimes people who are struggling with a mental illness, it may take up to 10 years to get the proper diagnosis and perhaps the proper meds and the proper doctor. So it's kind of ironic that it's taken us 10 years to have this sort of bulk out and get stronger. I gave a day-long workshop at the Presbytery of West Virginia in May, and I mentioned to that group that this 2008 document was excellent, but just had not been used much. And the associate executive who invited me to come and speak went right into her office and pulled the document off the shelves, and it really hadn't been opened. And I think the issue there is that it was overwhelming, or it was too much, or here's information, now what do we do with it? I don't think there was follow-up and implementation. So some of the topics that are included in it are the impact on families, stigma, incarceration, disaster response, violence, and trauma. So you can see it covered a wide range of topics. And truth be told, I think that because it was so broad and so thorough, it was hard to go deep in any of those areas. And again, as I say, the document was focused on serious mental illness. In my opinion, serious mental illness scares people. And it really is 4% of the population, and more widely acknowledged mental illnesses are 20% of the population. So I'm really keen on the 80%. And they are people who may be uncomfortable or frightened or really unsure of themselves in this whole field, and frankly not interested. But all of those people can be educated, and that can reduce stigma. So I'm really focused on the 100%. And I speak as one of the team, the task force. It's going to be going forth. There's 5 of us on the task force to take that that direction and to strengthen and build this Comfort My People initiative. This is a little tiny piece, but it may be of interest to you all. When the first one came out in 2008, it was distributed by Health, Education, and Welfare, and it was published by the Committee on Social Witness Policy. And so I think that really frames what happened with that document, because education and social witness are very key. They don't necessarily lead to action, and they are absolutely appropriate and useful in and of themselves. But in June, this effort now falls under compassion, peace, and justice, which I think has a different message. And so now that we're under the compassion division, I think we are already feeling that there's desire to move quickly, and interest to make sure that it goes in a practical way to people's lives. So, as you know, words matter. So just to tell you a little bit more, I'm not going to flood you with stories about myself, but I think language is very important in reaching people in churches. I do not use the word mental illness in a church setting, because I'm usually doing a broader education presentation. If it is a clinical designation, then of course I use mental illness, but I just find that people in churches are able to listen and hear more of what I'm saying when I say mental health concerns, mental health crisis, mental health issues. And I say mental health is a continuum, and we all live at different places on that continuum at different times in our lives. So by using those words, mental health, I think it helps everyone realize that we're all we're just all on the same continuum and just different places. And then mental health, the concept of the need for help is, I think, more accessible for people who know very little about mental illness. So, so that issue of language, I'm going to be bringing to this task force, and hoping that that can be sort of adopted as useful language, so that we aren't limited to serious mental illness. So now, fast forward to 2018. This sounds silly, but 3 white Texan men and myself, it is true, the 4 of us got this through our General Assembly and got it passed. And we are going to be working on diversity soon. But it was interesting. We had to go through a committee to get onto the floor of the General Assembly. And the committee decided that it wanted added to our request some instruction on how to incorporate homelessness, a focus on homelessness in our proposal. So that was interesting. I was pleased and interested that that they were aware of that, and we hadn't put it in our proposal. So when our overture went to the floor, we asked for $250,000. We got $479,000. I was there. I still don't know how it happened. It just was it was just blinding almost. It was so exciting. The executive to whom we report is, she sort of said, I have enough money to cover the cost of the task force work and the travel and all of that to develop the plan. So that $250,000 that we first asked for is now dedicated for grants. And they're not just going to be Presbyterian grants. So we've begun. We've had our first meeting. I'm excited. One of the things that I volunteered for is to work with conferences. And because there's a lot of structure that's being built. And I said, look, every time there's a meeting or a conference, we need to have handouts that give people some education or some skills. So that's part of what I have volunteered to do. And I'm also in charge of networking. So that's something I love to do. As you all know, I really enjoy interfaith engagement and all the various mental health organizations. So I'm going to certainly enjoy that. I have to say, I'm very fond of companioning, and I bring it up every time I speak. So I want to work with Pathways to Promise to find out the best way for me to present it, instead of just having it be a flyer that people pick up. Is there a packet I could put together? I want to work with people that have good handouts so that I make sure that it's effective and it's not just picked up and thrown away when they get home. So for instance, NAMI has a great handout, tips on how to approach someone with mental illness. I think that's just absolutely what we need, because so many people are scared of it. They won't even pick up a flyer. But if that's the title of it, how to approach someone, I think that's going to be a perfect one for me. And then of course the companioning one. So I'm really open to any other ideas and suggestions on flyers that I could use that would be good starters for people to just step in the door and dip your toe in the water. The water's fine. So let's see. Do I have anything else to say? So we have this task force that I was telling you about. These are the we're having our first gathering in Louisville in February, and there'll be 30 people. And that's going to be the model that we have a national investment engagement from the start, rather than having it be top down. So the task force is focused on more urban and rural outreach and racial, gender, and age diversity. It's also to create welcoming churches and destigmatizing illnesses. We are going to have an effort to approach seminaries and student training before they graduate. We're going to have a central network website, and we are going to encourage congregations to become advocates and a community resource. So the other thing that's fun is we got our Mental Illness Sunday added to our church calendar, which goes to every minister in the country. So we're just slowly, carefully, gently finding ways that we can just bring this to people's attention. The other piece is that we are going to equip pastors, ministers to preach about mental illness or mental health, and so therefore increase pulpit preaching. We're going to be educating and equipping pastors regarding safe boundaries, because not everybody wants to learn that, but they need to learn it. So it's like child protection. You know, we all learn to put windows in our doors, and we all learn certain protocols. You don't drive alone in a car with a teenager. Well, we're going to try to get that kind of language and strength built into what we do there. And we're really keen on producing videos. Print is good, videos are better. So another little piece of this task force development was, I liked it. It was after we built all this superstructure and who's going to do what, at the very end, I said, look, can we just, every time we meet going forward, just spend a few minutes, you know, each of us saying something about what we've learned in the work we've been doing. And it was very interesting. I didn't ask for this, but everyone shared why they were invested. And everyone had a story. Everybody knew someone. It was someone in their church, or it was a family member. I was so delighted. And I'm not sure that that would have happened if it had been at the front end of the meeting, but I said, we need this as a team. We need this so we can understand where we're all coming from. But then I realized the dynamic of that is really important when you're developing a mental health cluster or coalition. It's so important to continue to hear each other's stories, not just one presentation once a year, but to continue to create space for that. I think is really helpful, and it gives us a broader breadth of knowledge that we wouldn't have otherwise. So let's see. Do I have anything else? One thing, and this is something to think about. This isn't a report necessarily from the meeting, but I do speak often, and I do talk about companioning because for me it's the cleanest and perhaps the easiest in terms of getting people engaged. I was a teacher for Stephen Ministry, and you know that's 12 weeks, 2.5 hours a night. Family to Family with NAMI is also 12 weeks and 2.5 hours. And I think people that go use those services are really desperately in need of, you know, help and support and information. And there's pressure there to get started. I think there's a whole slew of people that would really appreciate something shorter that was more geared for them. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are not aware or not being approached, because I don't think there's a lot there. Maybe I'm wrong. You all please tell me if I am. But I do think there's room for Stephen Ministry. It does teach you just one night on depression and suicide, but they meet 1 hour a week, and that's pretty 1 hour. And I know that oftentimes people with mental health issues need more than that and more frequency. So the one thing I do love about Stephen Ministry is that they have supervision, and it could be a group wisdom thing. But I think that's another reason why people get nervous about jumping in, because they think, oh man, if I screw up, what am I going to say? And I say, tell them just, oh, gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Can you help me figure out what to say that would have been better? So that kind of that middle ground, in my opinion, could really use some strengthening. So I think that's it. 25 minutes, I did it. Okay, I'm ready for questions or anything else.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Sure.
Before I open it up for questions, I just want to let you know Pathways is actually working with the mental health chaplaincy to to further develop the companionship program and to take that nationally and provide it more openly to congregations and organizations and different groups of community. And it would be about a 3-hour training. And then we'll also be teaching folks how to be instructors of companionship.
Great.
And so
that's another piece. I want to make sure that we pair our services. So to the extent that we can, I don't know if this is possible, but to just, for me to hand out a companioning sheet is different than me saying these two sheets together will get you to the point where you can call in for more training or something. I just think that's going to give it strength. People are going to call into our national call line at the Presbyterian Church USA, And we're going to do some serious educating of those people so that they know if someone's asking for something on homelessness, we have a book, we have programs, we have this organization does that. I really want to make sure that we give people something that's useful and not just say, oh, this is available. So I'm one of those people who can say that. I can say this, this you need to do this. So I'm just asking for your help in developing strategies on how to best encourage people to get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to talk further with you about that.
Good.
Great. So let's open it up for questions. I think most of you all are muted. I think all of you can unmute yourselves, but I'm working on unmuting you all.
Myself included.
You are unmuted, Kathy. You're good.
Okay.
Kathy, this is Robert. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Could you say a little more about that middle ground strengthening? You had mentioned Stephen Ministry once a week for an hour, and you'd mentioned companionship as possibly fitting into that spectrum of what could be done in congregations. I'm interested in your thinking about that. What is that middle ground?
Well, you can probably tell me more about mental health clusters that work well. And part of what you do is bring speakers, and I'm really interested in providing sort of continuing education. So being real clear that yes, we want you to come to any one thing, but would you like to be on a track where you gain skills? And the Stephen Ministry gets lots of skills, and they put them into use, and they have supervision. To me, that's the kind of thing that people in the middle ground who care, they don't want to do a 12-week program. So companioning is one. I do know that there's something coming out with NAMI called Family and Friends, which I think is 3 hours. I've not taken that yet, but I think if we could find 3-hour increments and take the, it doesn't have to be a certification, but if there could be some acknowledgement of, the learning people have gotten, and then they feel even better and more equipped to approach people. So I think there's just that space where people are interested. They've been educated to some extent. It's not about education so much as it is about how to start the conversation. And I don't know enough about what other organizations offer. I know we've got the media, I forgot, mental health, I can't remember the name of it, in San Diego. There's In Me, there's Fresh Hope, there is Grace Alliance, there's Hope from Saddleback. There's lots of different things. But I have to say, even I get exhausted just trying to figure out what's the right fit, and so I don't know the answer to that. I hope we'll be able to do some of that training at our call center, to know enough about the materials to say, well, gosh, if you've done this, then this might be the next thing you want to do. And so I think it's really good for your organization and mine to spend some time thinking through what's the path. If you've done Stephen Ministry before, would you like companioning? This is a different model. And then to encourage clusters to really encourage people to build a track that they can, there's a track where I can thoughtfully move forward, not just hit and miss and I'll go to whatever's there. I think that would just help everyone.
It reminds me a little of what Jermaine Alberty says they're doing in St. Louis, where they have sort of a certification for a behavioral health informed congregation, and that includes 8 hours of mental health first aid, 3 hours of companionship, a trauma informed congregation training, how to navigate the mental health care system training. And I don't know.
That sounds terrific. And if I were taking that track, I would feel like I was really growing in my ability to work in this field and to talk to people. And if I had taken all of those, and I've taken several of them, and truth be told, when I took mental health first aid, my shoulders dropped. I thought, oh, I can do this. It's not so scary anymore. So that's exactly what I think, to give people an opportunity to learn at a little deeper level, and hopefully they'll be companions so that they're not alone learning this. And to just build that middle track, I think would benefit us all.
I was curious that you had said that producing videos is promising to be an effective way to get the word out, so to speak. I don't know if you want to say more about that in terms of written materials or other ways of getting across information.
Sure. Just ask yourself, when you go to a website, do you read all of it? No. And if you have a little arrow over somebody who looks interesting, don't you press the arrow? And so short videos is the ticket, and just hearing someone's personal story. It's the next best thing to being in person with them. And I just feel connected when I look at a video rather than reading a text. And so we're starting to do that at our affiliate, our NAMI affiliate, and people speak. They touch your heart oftentimes, and that doesn't happen as much with print. So, especially for the younger population. Now, one of the strategies that I'm using in my ministry is that churches are pretty much populated mostly by older people now. And so I use print without any problems. We're going to do videos as well. But so I have a different focus for an older adult population. Younger adults, their attention span, and I'm not being pejorative here, but, I think it's true for all of us, 30 seconds. And, well, gosh, let's move on. I have someone who has great blogs, but I cannot get through them. They're too long for me. And I think that attention span is shrinking with all of us. So to have some text and then have a video, breaks it up, and then you can read more if you have a short little video. So I think people across the board, I think people like to hear someone's story. Stories really speak.
Makes sense.
Kathy, you mentioned that we're speaking to elderly congregations more and more. And I just began an interim position at a church where that is true. There's a large elderly congregation from like 60 to 94. And they have not had anything on mental illness or mental health. And the pastor has suggested that I share my story. You said you geared it toward the elderly more. What kinds of things do you include?
Well, I only use mental health language. I don't ever use mental illness.
Right.
In the Presbyterian Church, we have an organization called POAM, Presbyterian Older Adult Ministry Network. And so I have this open door right away that this is a whole network of people across the country that look to them for product. I spoke at that conference last June, and to get articles in their newsletter is an easy way, and perhaps a better way. I'm not sure that older people watch videos as much as younger people do, but I may be wrong. But I think just thinking about the various generations and all the different needs, if you go through all of those different generations, older people, first of all, don't talk about mental illness. They just don't do it. They were taught to buck up, and you don't admit their problems or issues. So to know that when you're writing things and to just have an illustration of someone, I think to sit back and read or listen to someone else, they're not particularly inclined to talk about their own issues. And the horrible, sad truth is that white men over 70, the suicide rate is increasing, exponentially. So it's not like the issue isn't there, but to begin to develop a sense of safety around sharing certain things about your life, and maybe it's creating a small, a senior lunch group that talks about various topics, or Robin Williams, or you hear about these big public personalities, and it's one thing to say, oh gosh, that's bad, and then it's another thing to, I think there's a book out on Robin Williams now, or anyway, the point is that if there's a public figure that's struggling or doesn't have to have committed suicide, but has issues, then they can talk about it from a distance. They can talk about it, oh my, that happened, rather than this happened to me. So I
So
think giving them a safe space and giving them some comfortable distance to begin to talk very gingerly about it.
So do you think sharing my story would be effective?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I learned, I was trained in our own voice at NAMI, and it scared me to death. I didn't want to tell people I don't know my story,
Yeah.
and I was startled at how many people greatly appreciated me doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me courage to keep doing it. So I think we're reticent to do that, and you can tone it down or ratchet it up depending on your audience, but
Right.
keep it mild and gentle and real. And the pain is there. It's not going away. And so to be honest about your life is modeling something for them too. So for you to have the courage to do it and model something for them, I think is really important. You can cut into different programs. Let's say the seniors, have a book study or whatever. There's a great book called Lost Connections. It's great. I tell everybody about it. It talks about the real reasons for depression and the surprising antidotes. That's the wildest subtitle I've ever heard, but it's very good. It talks about meaningful work and meaningful relationships and a relationship with nature. And it's all the stuff that the church can do. So I really like that topic as a book study if they were to do it, and have someone look at it ahead of time and shrink it down to eat sizable chunks. But something like that, a book study might be really good, or a book that deals with depression. There's a great book called Jesus Wept. It's sweet, it's little, and it talks about Jesus weeping when his best friend died. And wow, that's a great book. You could read it. It's easy. It's short. So looking for things like that, making sure that you have women's stories and men's stories, and men are more reluctant to speak about their mental health issues than women. But maybe there's one. Maybe it's someone not from your church. Maybe it's someone from the NAMI affiliate who would come out and do their in our own voice. But it is good to know that there are concerns in the church, and then to help the church learn how to address it. Because that's where this movement is going to grow, is if we can, that's our family, this is our church family, and so people say, oh, we don't have that issue, it's the church down the street, So I said, well, I don't know, let's just keep talking. So does that help?
Yes, thank you very much, Kathy.
Sure.
Kathy, I don't know if you're in a position with your planning group to say much about it, but you had mentioned that there's a certain amount of money that's going to be set aside for doing grants.
Yes.
Get things going. I don't know if you could say anything about that.
I can't, and I shouldn't. It'll be the framework for that will happen in February, and where they'll work out, the criteria and who it goes to and all that stuff. But so I don't know anything more, but I could fill you in March.
Okay, great, thank you.
Do we have any final questions for Kathy?
I have one more thought, Kathy. You had mentioned that part of your outreach is going to be going to seminaries, and I'm not sure if you had any description of what you're hoping to. Will there be actual courses that you're hoping to establish at seminaries, or include content in already existing courses? Or
There is a course that's being offered at McCormick, the Presbyterian Seminary here in Chicago, that in collaboration with the Lutheran Seminary, which is right across the Greenway. I did look at the syllabus, and it was very dense and very theological. And I didn't find anything that sort of jumped out at me. I think what I'm hoping will happen, and this did happen for me when I was at McCormick, that we could choose 2 out of 4 special little Saturday morning, Friday night and Saturday morning courses. And one was how to do a funeral. And one was, so I would like this mental health education, mental illness preparation, to be one of those 4. So that would be my strategy for McCormick. I don't know, we haven't had open doors. I would think it would be such a no-brainer, but a couple of us have tried, and it will probably take an effort that covers all the seminaries at one time, so that they'll all realize that they're all being called to accountability. So it'll be up to them to decide where it fits. I made a proposal to Garrett, which is a United Methodist seminary, and for a half day on Saturday, and it just kept not getting through committee, kind of thing. So I think it's going to take the church's larger arm to get something across the board. It cannot be just one seminary. It needs to be a unified effort.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for
Sure.
bringing all of this amazing stuff for us. I'd love to spend the last 15 minutes or so seeing and hearing what all of our participants are doing in their organizations and communities, and possibly how Kathy's presentation can tie into some of that. Yeah, I'd love to open it up to hear more from you all.
This is Barbara Myers. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi. Great presentation. Really liked it. I can underscore the importance of telling one story. Whenever I've told my story in front of a congregation, at the end of my sermon, I ask people to stand in witness if they or someone that they love is living with a mental health problem. And whenever I've done that, there's been like 80 to 100% of the people will stand up.
Wow.
And nobody can believe that there's so many people. That's the single most effective thing I found to sort of get rid of stigma, when everybody realizes they're part of it. What I'm doing, I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, and my ministry focuses on mental health issues, and I'm in the process of writing a book that's going to be talking about mental health in congregations and what congregations can do to be helpful to people, mostly telling stories of what I've experienced in my ministry. So that will be sometime this coming year. That book will come out. And then I've also been working, and I've done this, Robert Scrocki is part of this, I've been working with a group of people who are Unitarian Universalists who are interested in starting a mental health network. And we've sort of developed a mission statement and a covenant, and we're in the process of applying to our denomination for recognition as a recognized group in the denomination. So that's all underway at this point. So kind of exciting work.
Cool. Like it.
Kathy, do you think there's within the Presbyterian denomination there's will the networking, so to speak, between different congregations and faith bodies related to mental health, will it go through the Presbyterian staff, already existing staff structure, or do you think there may end up eventually developing some sort of a loose knit network sort of alongside the Presbyterian staff structure?
Yeah. After the 2008 document, we actually did have staff dedicated to this, and it went from 1 person to half a person to 1/4 a person to 1/12 of a person, and then she left. I mean, she didn't leave. I mean, there was no funding. So we don't have. We probably are not going to do that again, to have a single dedicated person. I really hope that they had us at the task force meeting. We were to vision, 5 years from now, what do you see? And I said, after we get the Presbyterians, really up to speed, I want to see all the denominations. I want to see all of us linked. And they weren't ready to hear that because we are so focused on what we need to do right now. But I do want that. That's my hope, is that, in 5 years, we have a 2-year term now. We have to report back in 2020. And I think surely we're going to have another 2 years. So I think after 4 years, we will be strong. And then, not then, I want to start those connections now. But we don't have a framework for it right now. It's in my head, and the names are people that I know. But I want that to be very much a part of what we gather, the information we gather. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think at the moment it's loose links. I think that can be heightened and strengthened, and in due time, after February, we'll know more about that. It's not on our agenda, so to speak, and I'm the carrier of that banner, because I think it's so important to work across faith traditions. So we'll see. I think it will come. It's not the first priority right now.
This is Barbara Myers again. I have another question. With the almost $500,000, was that a one-time thing, or is that a yearly thing?
It's for 2 years, and okay. We will know more what we might need in the future at the end of the 2 years. We'll definitely be going back to our 2020 General Assembly, and I'm sure we'll be asking for money. I just don't know how much.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything to report from their communities and organizations?
This is Cindy Holtrip. I just spoke at a NAMI group and shared my story and talked about how faith can help and sometimes religion can hurt. And they were very open to it and receptive, and we had a good time.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm the FaithNet coordinator. I think that was in the bio, but I also say FaithNet doesn't mean religion. It means having faith in something beyond ourselves. So when we have meetings, we don't talk about religion, and I encourage people to talk about hope and community. But FaithNet, some people think, I don't know if I want to do that. But I think you said it well. Faith can help, religion might not.
This is Peggy. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yes.
Oh, good. This doesn't relate to, I'm a faith community nurse, and I do outreach for our impoverished areas, but I'm also the parish nurse for 4 churches. And some of you know I did mental health education for our soup kitchen. And it really did help the people there feel less intimidated to work with people with mental health problems. I'm so excited for this new development because that will help continue to build our momentum. So thank you for what you're doing. I just wanted to let you know that the medical system that I'm working with, they have developed a program for trauma victims of violence in our community, and they got a pretty good grant, and it is focused on the most poorest and the most violent zip code that is in our area. And it just got started. They have about 5 therapists. They have a intake process that anybody can refer someone, and then they do an assessment. And if the person has been survivor or victim or bystander of a violent crime that is, impacted them, of course, then they're eligible for their services. And they are trained in the trauma recovery process. So and if the person is not um, eligible or what have you, they have to be over the age of 12. Then they refer them to somewhere else. And this intake center has like a food pantry and not multiple agencies coming there, but they have it's like a resource center. So if I need clothing, they know where to tell somebody to go if they need this or that. And it's just starting, but I know I had I would do outreach in a soup kitchen, and you just never know what someone's going to say. And this gal, my gateway primarily is blood pressure and medical connection, but my role truly is intentional care of the spirit. And I just asked a gal that looked like she was in a hurry. How you listen to the Holy Spirit. And I said, even though she looked like she was going to be running out, I said, would you like your blood pressure checked? So she said, yeah. She ran out to the car with her food and then came back, and she just exploded when she sat down. Her son was murdered in front of a church, middle of the day, stabbed to death, 19, never involved with any that she knew of, any drugs or gangs, and was graduated from high school, going to the community college. And this woman was so, I had no words. And so I think as mental health, as you said, is on a continuum, and we have so many of our people that are facing day-to-day violence and day-to-day injustices that somehow also a piece of this, I feel, has to be addressed with the violent world we live in, and I don't know how to get my arms around it. I was at a birthday party in Arizona a couple months ago, and speaking with this group of people that really do want to try to make a difference. And they suggested being educated on one or two social issues that impacts mental health, and being able to speak articulately to it so that we can, just in our day-to-day, help people to understand that these outbursts of violence don't come out of nowhere. They're built on a culture of intolerance and a culture of judgmentalism. And so I hope maybe as you develop your program and your plan, that you could include some of the violence and ways that we can be equipped as little soldiers out in our, not soldiers, I don't want to use that word, little, messengers out into our communities, how we can day-to-day influence others. I loved what you just said. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. Can you please help me? Those are beautiful words, and just equipping us, because it's overwhelming as a practitioner out there.
The other thing about that sentence is that it gives the person agency. They get to name their own situation. And that's so often not the case. People are anxious and they withdraw, and then they're isolated and they don't talk anymore. And so for me to say, I can't believe I just said that. Please, will you help me? What would have been good? What would have been fitting? And then all of a sudden they're speaking about their own situation. And it's one little thing, but it like opens the little door and says, I'm listening.
Yeah,
I want to know
I
you.
care about you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, and anything that we can share in our network of how to equip people and equip us is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
This is Jermaine Alberty. How's it going, everybody?
Good.
Good.
So I've just been listening this whole time, and Kathy, thank you so much for your presentation, and Jessica, thank you for running the meeting for me. This has been some great stuff, and I want to provide an update for our plan for 2019 if there's no other reports from anyone. All right, I didn't hear anybody chime in. So what our plan is for 2019 is we're going to still do bi-monthly check-ins. However, what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of having a half-hour webinar, we're going to make those 1-hour webinar learning opportunities. So we will have, for instance, in February, we'll have a webinar for an hour, but then April's meeting will be a check-in meeting for an hour. And so what we hope to do is in between time is have all of our partners on this call share what you're doing and create a quarterly newsletter.
Jermaine? We lost you a bit, Jermaine.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so our goal is to do 3 webinars a year, 1-hour webinars a year, and then do 3 check-in meetings a year. And our goal is also to, in between those check-ins, to have a newsletter with collecting information for a quarterly newsletter to put out as part of the leadership forum. And we would love for you to email Jessica what you have going on a monthly basis so that we can put it on our Pathways calendar. And that will just be a place where we can put all the stuff that's happening in your organizations on one calendar that we'll have out there on Pathways site. So we'll still love to hear from you what you're doing, monthly activities, to share that, do highlights in a newsletter. But we think we need more time for learnings like what Kathy just did. That's our plan for 2019. So I would love to get any feedback from you all about that plan. What do you all think about that?
I really like the idea of having 1-hour seminars or webinars.
Great.
Jermaine, hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Doug Beach. Question, how many people are on the call today, Jessica?
We had 11 in total. 2 have gotten off the call so far. So right now there are 9 people total.
Okay. Well, Jermaine, this is something we've discussed before, but I'd like to, I think the webinars are great, but I'd like to see what we can do to enlarge the number of listeners. The material, the information is that we get is great, but we need to figure out how to get a broader reach. So,
yeah, that's why our goal is to move to the 3 webinars a year, to have more time to promote those webinars and get them out and have a calendar pre-made. And then we may do additional webinars on an as-need basis, but have at least 3 webinars attached to this particular leadership forum. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Doug. We have to get the numbers up. This is great information that's been shared. I think that happens, though, by those who are on these calls who really enjoy them. If you would share them through your Facebook, if you would share them also through your email network, that would be another great way to get the word out to people. So, for instance, in February, we are working with Dr. Chandri with a Islamic faith group, and she's going to share about Islam and mental health and their efforts. And so we hope to be able to do more informative webinars like that and get those out there. The other thing is, if you all have any suggested topics that you'd like for us to do, please email us those topics that you would like for us to consider, and we can most definitely try to find speakers for those. Or if you have a speaker that you want to recommend, we would love for you to recommend speakers also. But that's all I have. that's all I have for the update as far as that. We will be launching companionship trainer in 2019, so we're excited about that. And we'll be getting word out to everybody about the upcoming trainer events. We hope to kick off one in March. So we'll be getting word out to everybody about that also.
And this is Robert. In the Chicago area, we're going to be piloting the new updated version of the companionship training, and then follow that up hopefully around March with the train the trainer companionship as well. So I'm looking forward to working with people in the greater Chicagoland area to schedule both a few companionship trainings and a train the trainer training.
Will you be sending those out to us, Robert?
Sending the notices of the trainings, yes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Next Monday afternoon at 3 p.m., we're going to do a Zoom call for people who are interested in scheduling some of the initial companionship trainings early in 2019 with the revised workbooks and curriculum, and then follow that up around March with a train the trainer. So if you're interested in being part of the Zoom call at 3 o'clock on Monday, just let me know.
Robert, I would love to be on that call. This is Jessica, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I will send you the information, Jessica.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Robert, this is Doug Beach. Could you send me the information also?
Sure.
Thanks.
Me too, Robert. I don't know if I'll be able to be on it, but it would be nice to know in case I'm available. This is Kathy.
Hopefully you already got it, Kathy, but I'll resend it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Robert, I'm sorry to bother you. Could you send it to me too? This is Peggy Hawkes.
Sure, Peggy.
Thank you.
Well, we do our best to honor our commitment of keeping these calls to an hour. And if I know Jessica, we started right on time. And so it is about 11:32. So is there anything else anybody like to add before we bring our call to a close?
I always get inspired by the work everybody's doing. So thank you very much.
Well, for every holiday that we celebrate during this season, I hope everyone have a wonderful holiday celebration. And we look forward to talking with you all in February, and we'll get word out to everybody in January with the new schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much.